This video is going to explain the processes required in LEGO Studio 2.0 for our LEGO project at the beginning of Experience Design. This video is only going to talk about LEGO Studio, how to build basic things, how to start, and what I'm going to do is build the set you're seeing right here. Imagine I'm interested in photography. Maybe I have a business that's doing wedding photography and they want to give a little LEGO set to every client. Kind of a cool idea, right? And so here's our photographer and a big camera in the background. Well, how did I do this? As you can see, the camera is by Chris McVeigh. I'm going to make sure I credit that person in my project. But let's start from scratch. This is what LEGO Studio looks like when you start it up. It's a fairly standard L-Draw application, just a little bit more polished, has all these internet connectivity things. And what we're going to do is make a set. We can either make new from scratch. Wow, that'd be ambitious. You don't have to do that. Or you can search. Remember, there's some research, some visioning, a mood board kind of thing that you really should be doing at the beginning of this process. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to search for camera, and you're going to see that that one we just saw is one of the first things that turns up. Again, as I said, I will cite that. Very important. But I'm going to click on this, and then it's going to bring it in to our scene. That's pretty cool. Okay, I can still change things. I'm saying, oh man, the camera that I had when I was a kid, that right there is actually yellow or something. You just see what I mean? So you can change parts, right? I can drag parts onto there. I could drag parts off of there if I didn't want it there, or put it back again, you know. And so just because you bring in a set doesn't mean you can't use it. You click on the base. This is different. You right click on the base to rotate, okay, like this, okay, and then you're going to drag pieces on the right onto here. So if I wanted that jacket, I'd put it on there. If I don't want it, I click on it and I hit delete to get rid of it, right? So the basics, you know, you can build from scratch or find a pre-existing set. It's a small, like 1.5 week project, so I'm totally fine with you using someone else's set as long as you credit them. And often I bet these people will be happy to see their set rendered and in box art, so you might even want to get a hold of them. Okay, but the point is that we had our little minifigure person here. That was a cute addition, but like, how would I do that, right? Like, there's so many parts. Oh my God. Well, the first thing I could do is search. And those Lego Friends style, for example, they have a name called doll. In the Lego lexicon, they're more of a doll. Then there's also the minifigure. And minifigure, I could type that in. That's going to get me some stuff, but still tons, right? Now, then when you search, so you can search, gosh, so many. But then I look up here and I can just sort by category. That's going to jump to the place in this list that helps you sort it. It's a little bit awkward because they're all white, so it'd be kind of tough to see at times. So you can drag them in there and then color them, okay? All right. But what we're going to do is the secret power, which is like, man, I want a photographer, but like, you know, if I type in photo here, I don't think that gets me much. Like, it gets me, like, for some reason, it gets me BDB8's head. I don't know why. And if I type in camera, okay, that gets me some things, like this minifigure person that's got a camera on the jacket, as well as the Fabuland camera, which is a little bit too big. Right? I don't know if I even like that one, so I'm going to get rid of that one by hitting delete. Right? I'm actually going to build two photographers on this build. Okay, maybe it's a married couple. Okay, and so what I'm going to do next is I am going to go, oh, you know what? I did this visioning exercise, and I remember that there was a set called Emma's Photo Studio. I got it in 6th grade, and there was a camera and all this stuff in it. So maybe I'm going to use that. Well, but how would I go from knowing there is a Lego set to finding it in LEGO Studio? Well, that's what Bricklink is for, as I mentioned in the previous video. Okay, Bricklink essentially allows you to search by sets, okay, or names. So if I type in Emma's, for example, I could type in the number of the set. Remember, every Lego set has its own sort of unique thing. Emma's horse trailer. Man, Emma does a lot of stuff. Okay, so here's Emma's Art Cafe if I wanted to do that instead. But the biggest thing is the minifigures, okay? And so when I look in Bricklink, I can go to the minifigure and look, how many parts? And then it lists the parts, All right, and so I can go, oh, okay, mini doll hips and skirts. You know what I mean? So I can, or I can, often this will work. You can type in the number. It's not 100%, but it tends to work. So if I want that exact face or something, I can type those in. But if you can't find exactly, look at the name. You can see here, thick hinge, you know, doll and those things. And so like I could go over here and go, oh, okay, nougat doll. I don't know what nougat doll does, but it gives me all these things. So there's the legs that I want, wonderful. And then head, and then I want, you know, and then I don't have to use it for everything. But let's see, torso assembly. Let's see, that's right there. And I'm going to put a nice, cool shirt. Oh, that's cool looking. Okay, and now what about a head? Well, that's not the heads I want, so I X out of that. And I'm just going to type in doll. I'm just going to type in straight up doll. Okay, and so I can go to the heads there and say, oh, there's a nice doll head. This, I click on it. I'm going to pick the colors. The way this works is a little awkward. You click on the wider color and then the color you want. Okay, there we go. Oh, tattoo and everything. Pretty neat. All right, and so now what about the hair? Doll hair, and I drag that onto the head as well. And then while it's highlighted, I can go over here and say, well, I want it to be, you know, we don't have to be blue, black. Wonderful. All right, and so there's our photographer that she's ready to go. But, you know, wouldn't it be cute if she was looking over here at her dorky, schlubby, blocky husband? Well, if you want something to turn, now the problem is these arms won't turn because I brought it in as a piece. And watch how I do the legs later on the man. But if I want her to turn, that's where I have to start looking at this thing on the right. This is all of my parts. And right now it's saying they're all coming in at once. Well, when we really get into this, there's something called steps down here. That's kind of like a grouping thing in Photoshop. But I can shift click these two things. I can click the face and the hair. They're both over here, head and hair. I highlight them both. Now up here, we haven't even looked at the tools because the only thing we've been doing is move. But there's this thing called hinge. And when I click on hinge, it should detect the way the head can move. And so I'm going to say, oh, she's going to look over this way. They're going to kind of be looking at each other. Now, what about this guy? Well, he needs legs. And that's not a doll. That's a minifigure. So I could type in figure. Okay, but that's going to get me so much stuff. I believe 1,600. Yep, 1,600 results. Oh my gosh, too many. All right, but what we want to do is I'm going to type in the word hips, just hips. Okay, and hips is going to be different. Now, I can't move those arms, I can't move those legs because of the way that this character was built. Notice these hips. I'm going to pull that out. It looks like legs without legs. Okay, we have legs down here, but these don't have legs. Well, the reason, you see, these are legs assembly. And so I'm going to type in leg again. Okay, and now these are dinosaur legs, but I'm going to go down here to minifigure legs. Let's see, minifigure body part, and there are my legs. Okay, now these are clip-on ones. There's an R2-D2 leg. Oh, there we go. A right leg, kapow, and a left leg, kapow. Now, that seems like a pain in the butt, Ed. Like, why did you do it that way? Well, because if I typed in minifigure and I just did in comparison, and if I could type well, figure, okay, any of the legs that you're going to see here, if you see the legs, because sometimes you don't really, the guy's just going to be standing there, right? Who cares? And so therefore, if the legs are together, they will not move separately. So now I'm going to take that torso, stick it on there, cool deal. And the same thing goes for the arms. So we type in arm, and then I'm going to go here for minifigure. If I want them to move, I have to build it separately. It's that additional little bit of work, you know, unfortunately. So I'm going to say, oh, okay, there's a left arm I'll stick on there. Now, there's a right arm I'm going to stick on there. Good. Okay. Then I'm going to look for hand. Remember, arm, whoops. Arm will give you a lot of results, but it's reasonable. Hand. Okay, and I look for hand here. Where is it? Let me scroll down here. Minifigure hand. Minifigure body part. There it is. And I click on a hand there, and I click on a hand there. And last but not least, I'm going to type in smile, let's say. Smile, we're going to get bricks with smiles on them, but all these happy guys. Oh, he's got a dorky goatee, dang it. Okay, and there's our guy. Now he's pretty pasty looking here, so I can go to favorite colors and make him that color if I want to. Okay, or whatever to match the client. Maybe I'll give him some blue pants here, so I gotta go to blue and then blue. Blue, and it's pretty specific, by the way. You gotta click in there. Okay, so now we have this guy. Now, just like the other person, I have to shift click all of these parts, right? Like all of that stuff. If I'm gonna move him around, whoop, I didn't get his shirt. And so let's see, there's the shirt, it's way up there. I should move that down. And so all of these should be grouped, okay, in together, and I can click this little plus, and that makes a step. So I can put them on. Step 2 is the guy. Okay, so oops, let me do it again. So that way I just kind of have them separated down here. Here's our husband in the wedding photographer business, let's say. Okay, he's standing there too. Now he is going to look at her. So I click on hinge on the head. I'm going to rotate. Oh, they like each other. Okay, and then his arm, I'm going to now click on. Now notice that's got 2 hinges. So I click on this one, and then I can raise that up. Okay. Other thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to type in camera again. And I'm going to take the minifigure camera and drag it out. I'm going to make it black. Whoops, I got to highlight it and make it black. And now I try to drag in her hand, and gosh darn it, she doesn't seem to want to grip it. So I'm going to use the arrow keys, up, down, left, right. It's by the side of the keyboard. Notice that rotates it, and I'm going to rotate it around until it lines up with her hand. So whoop, get out of there, and boom. Now she has a hand camera in her hand. Nudge it back there a little bit somehow. There it goes. So she is now holding that camera. Right, so I have my little set. Maybe I put a camera in his view or something like this. Okay, it doesn't really matter. So now we have our cute couple, we have their camera, and my set for their business is now done. All right, I can put a bow on her head or whatever, but I don't need to do that. All right, so now imagine I have finished the Lego brick designer part of this. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do is save it. You probably should have saved it before this, but I'm going to save it as a Lego Studio thing. All right, so I'm going to go to the desktop. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to say my Lego camera project. Right, this is super important. All right, that you save everything in the same directory because things need to find each other, the 3D models and other things. So the first thing is just save it, but that's in case I realize like, you know what, that dude is shorter than her, and in fact he's taller or whatever. Okay, so maybe I want to make a change to the set. That's what that save was for. The next thing you're going to do is export it as an LDRAW. Okay, and an LDRAW program is the one that LeoCAD and other programs are going to use. And so I'll call it camera project dot, add the .LDRAW project, and I hit that and it saves it. Okay, so now if I look in my directory here on my desktop, there's a thing called my Lego camera project. There's the LDRAW export, and there is the Lego Studio saved file. Okay, and you're saying, gosh, that's the way. This is the way modern sort of graphics production works, right? Like you make one 3D model of Woody from Toy Story, and then it's used for the video game. It's used for the cartoon. It's used for the web advertisement. All right. So point is that now that I've saved it and exported it, I'm actually going to export it one more time, which is export as this Kayada file. Now, right now I am not, because if you have stickers, if you have decals, and I don't know if that camera is a decal. So when I save it as a Kayada file, same exact directory, I'm going to look in there when I'm done, and I'm going to see on the desktop, let's see, my Lego camera project. Nope, there's nothing in there. There's no decals. That's handy. So that DAE file actually is junk. That's a Kayada file, a DAE. I'm going to throw it out. But sometimes Lego uses stickers here. Okay, and so if you're using stickers, you do need to do that Kayada export, and then we'll apply the stickers in the next video. All right, so I've saved it, exported it as an LDRAW, exported it again as a Kayada file if I have any stickers, and then lastly, I am going to render it. Okay, and that is going to give me an image, a JPEG that I'm going to use in boxes. Now let's take a look at our project here. If I go to, you can see that what I've done is I have made templates, okay, where I took original Lego box art and recreated it myself in a higher resolution vector-based format. I did not create the background art. We're going to talk about that, how to cite that in your portfolio if you use these, okay, but I found the exact fonts, I found the highest resolution logos, and this is what you're going to end up with. That is my set. I made that guy. I made that, I rendered that truck. Okay, so these renders are going to go into the box art. And as you can see in the previous video, you have your choice. You can do Lego Ideas, Lego Star Wars, Lego Friends, or Lego City. So you have choices of 4 different sets to choose from. And if you want to do Lego Dots, I could probably come up with that as well. All right, and so how do I make my render? Well, this is where it's like 3D modeling, but not like 3D modeling. Okay, so I'm going to click the render button at the top right there, and that brings up the render interface. Rendering takes a while, and the other thing is that what makes this different is it acts not exactly like a regular 3D modeler in that I can change the camera. Most 3D modelers, when you render, you're rendering from a pre-existing camera point of view. So I place this where I want. I can change the size down here. So I say, oh, I actually want this 1920 by 1080, let's say. I can zoom in, and so this is the PNG file that will be generated by Blender or by Lego Studio. And so I come up with a cool one, and I have to think about my box art too, right? So if my box art, like this Lego Friends one, is fairly squarish, so when I go here, I'm going to set it up for something like that. When I click render, it is going to ask me where I want to save it, and then that is going to take a long time. Okay, it's going to take at least 40 minutes. And so just FYI, if you're the kind of person who likes to turn things in 5 minutes before the due date, you're going to have problems. Okay, because when I press render, it's about to tell me that the PNG file that I want from this is going to take 40 minutes. It'll be ready 40 minutes from now. Now notice we have all these options in here. You can scroll down, by the way, don't miss this. It'll actually add little scratches. That's pretty cool, right? So it looks more like real played with Lego. And so when I click render, it's going to slow my computer down. It's going to ask me where, so I'll say camera box art. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to do is camera box art. All right, and so what that's going to do is it's going to go and it's going to kick on this other program you're going to see at the bottom. Okay, and then that will start rendering it. And it will actually tell you, you're going to see all this computer gibberish at the top. You know, if you ever, you always hear about processor speed and all these things with computers. Well, this is where that matters. And this is saying it's going to take 57 minutes to make this image. So 57 minutes from now, I can come back and there will be a PNG file, a beautiful PNG file. If you want to see some of them in action, here's some other ones. There is a dinosaur that I rendered. Here is that guy I rendered, and notice the gray means transparent. So I'm making these pieces to go into Photoshop. But the last thing you're going to need to do is make an image of the set in a real world space. You have to take a picture of a desk or a kitchen or something and put the set on that real desk. Well, how do we do that? Well, if you remember from Lego Studio, we went to the file, pulled down menu, and we said export as LDRAW. Well, that's because this doesn't export well. We're going to go to another program called LeoCAD, and we're going to say File Open. And I've already done that here. Okay, this is the previous one. I'll close it. File Open. And I'm going to open up the one we just made with the married couple in it. Okay, oh, I guess not. It's the wrong one. Let me open up. This is my previous example. Open. I'm in my wrong directory. Lego Camera. The one I made for this example is called My Lego Camera Project. There it is. Apologies. Okay, and there it is. Here's our couple. Oh, look at that. Doesn't like that part. Doesn't like that set. That's a separate issue. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a different one. We're sorry, husband. They got divorced. And so, anyway, so here is our set now. We want to put this thing in real 3D modeling. Okay, that's where we want to go with this. We want to put it in something like Blender or Adobe Dimension, Wavefront, whatever you want to do with it. Right, we want to move it from the LDRAW kind of fun brick zone into real 3D modeling. So what am I going to do? Well, LeoCAD exports as a wavefront. When you export from Lego Studio, as a Kayada, it's a mess. It's actually embarrassing. I don't really understand why they do that. And so I'll call it camera project export. And so what that's going to do is it's going to make an OBJ file of it. Now, if the bricks didn't work, like we lost our cameraman, I will show you how to fix that in class. It's a little beyond the scale of this video. Okay, but what that just did is it made this OBJ and MTL file. You will need both of those. And now when I go to a program like Blender, here's the previous example. Okay, I can go File and Import, and then I can say Import OBJ. And then I'm going to go to the desktop. I can find my Lego Camera Project OBJ. Okay, and then did it do it? We'll see. Okay, make connection to. Maybe it didn't export. But the point is that it should import fairly well. Import OBJ, and then if I go to, that should have done it. There it is. Okay, and then that OBJ file will go into something like Lego Studio. I'm sorry, into Blender. Two things I like to do in any 3D modeler. I'm going to take RX -90. I'm going to rotate it -90 degrees. That makes it stand up. And I'm also going to make it substantially smaller. Weirdly enough, Lego bricks, when they go into other 3D modeling programs, are huge. Each one of these squares technically is like 6 feet or something. Okay, so when I brought that in, this camera was like 50 feet long. So now that I've done this, I can save it, export it again, or whatever. But now, you know, Blender, this video is not about Blender, but I have now taken my Lego Studio thing and moved it in here. As you saw with the other male photographer's chest, not everything is going to go perfectly. There's just so many bricks. Okay, but there are definitely ways we absolutely can fix those problems without any hesitation. Okay, so anyway, idea being that that is the process. Just make sure that when you're in Lego Studio, you understand that you have to save it and export it twice. When you go to LeoCAD, you open it and then export it as a wavefront. So you're actually doing 3 exports, and in some ways a 4th if you consider the rasterization. So, but this is how modern visualization works. You kind of come up with this project and then you generate all kinds of things from it. You know, like for example, we just had the World Cup and Doritos was a major sponsor. So they came up with this thing called Triangle Island. Well, they made posters, they made billboards, they made video games, they made movies, all from this single piece of digital 3D modeling. Okay, the same thing happens here. So just make sure that when you're using Lego Studio, you get finished and then understand that you are then going to begin a fairly technical digital file process that you have to make sure you follow through correctly in order for it to work. Good luck, and the next video will cover Blender and Adobe Dimension.